Good morning, guests, colleagues, and potential applicants. We welcome you to the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Round 9 Notice of Funding Availability Workshop presentation. We are joined by our partners at the Strategic Growth Council, who will present alongside us today. And our partners at the California Air Resources Board could not join us. However, we have a recorded segment from them later in the presentation. For those who I have not had the pleasure of meeting, either through email or while at a groundbreaking or grand opening, my name is Lynn Jones, and I am one of two section chiefs in the Climate Investments branch here at HCD. I, along with Hector Leyva, who wasn't able to be here today, oversee the AHSC program. We currently have about 122 participants in our webinar, and we are expecting about 100 more. So thank you all for joining us today. We will be covering a lot of information this morning, and we recommend you take notes and write down any applicable questions. As you can see from the agenda here, we will be going over a number of topics that'll walk through this round of information, from housekeeping to program overview, scoring, feasibility, quantification methodology updates, and some policy and applicant resources. Let's start with some general housekeeping. One, if you could edit your name in Zoom by hitting the three dots located on your image and edit your first and last name, that would greatly help us in identifying who you are, especially if you are going to submit a question and answer and we need to get back to you on that. Additionally, please silence your cell phones, mute your mics, and turn off your cameras. We are handling this functionality from our end, but just to be safe, we ask that you do that as well. While we would love to see your smiling faces, we want to make sure that this presentation is as distraction-free as possible. Today's presentation should take about an hour and a half, depending on questions and answers. We will pause in the middle of the presentation for a short 10-minute break to stretch your legs, get some water, and then come back and rejoin. We will not be answering project-specific questions during today's presentation because in order to answer those specific questions effectively, we would need the whole project scope and more details than time permits here. However, we do have a formal question and answers form posted on SGC's Round 9 AHSC webpage where you can provide all the details for your specific project and submit your question. We may also pause to take some questions if time and flow permit. Lastly, we will be holding all questions to the end. However, feel free to utilize the Q&A function within Zoom during the presentation, where staff will be reviewing and potentially answering questions as we go. When using the Q&A function in Zoom, please include your full name so we can attribute your question to the registration form, where you will have an email and entity name listed. That way, if we need to take the question away for further research, we have all the necessary information to get in contact with you. So I do see some familiar names in our participant group, and it's glad to see you here and that you are able to join us. Let's take a quick pulse of who is joining us in the room today. And by a show of hands using your Zoom functionality, how many folks do we have here from a jurisdiction or a service provider? Awesome. I see a number of you. Thank you. And how about a transportation or transit agency? Okay, a few of you. How about local officials? All right, not many, but that's okay. And how many of you are developers? Lots and lots. I understand. All right. Anybody else that I did not call out? Okay, great. It looks like we've got a pretty good mix of folks in the room. Here's a couple more questions for you. Is anyone looking to apply to or have applied to the SuperNOFA already? All right, we've got a number of you. How many of you are planning on applying for this particular round of AHSC? All right, we're excited for those applications. How many of you have applications in process with other HCD funding sources, maybe like HomeKey? All right, we've got great experience in the room. So let's briefly review our accomplishments over the last 2 rounds. As you can see here, we had a strong funding round in both 2023 and 2024. In round 7, we awarded 21 projects over 16 jurisdictions and awarded approximately $757 million. In round 8, we awarded 24 projects with 20 jurisdictions covered, and we awarded almost $800 million, close to about 789 million. And we are looking to an equally competitive year for round 9 as well. So our round 8 AHSC awards were approved by council in late August of 2024. The team immediately went to work updating guidelines for round 9, and many changes we had been flagging since the prior round, but many were newly discovered to result in a smoother and clearer process for both reviewers and applicants. We eventually released draft guidelines by November of 2024, just a few short months after we awarded, and we had final guidelines adopted in February of 2025. Our application underwent a significant refresh, and that was released alongside the NOFA in late March. We are conducting workshops this week and last, and we were down in SoCal at Weingart Towers last week, and it was an awesome event, and we followed with a workshop at our new state facilities here in Sacramento, and we are rounding it out with a virtual presentation today, which will be recorded and provided to you all later on next week. Applications are due at the end of May, and awards will be adopted at council in December of 2025. At this time, we have approximately about 150 folks joined here virtually today, and the team is very excited to present to you information for this upcoming round of funding. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Michael Murphy, who will discuss program overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn, and good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Murphy, Program Manager in HCD's Climate Investments Branch, and I'll be covering the AHSC Round 9 program overview. The AHSC program assists the development of project areas by providing grants and/or loans that will achieve GHG emissions reductions and benefit communities throughout California, with an emphasis on disadvantaged communities. How does the program do this, you ask? By increasing accessibility between destinations, resulting in fewer vehicle miles traveled, shortened trip lengths, or mode shift from single occupancy vehicle use to transit, bicycling, or walking. The 4 funding components of the program are affordable housing development, AHD, and/or housing-related infrastructure, HRI, and you must have a sustainable transportation infrastructure component, STI. And there's also program, PGM, for community development. This is optional. However, there are scoring opportunities here. If you have a program component, it must be dispersed within 3 years from when the AHD is placed in service. Please review section 116D of the guidelines for more information. The AHSC program is funded by Greenhouse Gas Reduction Funds, or GGRF, which is an account established to receive cap and trade auction proceeds. The funds available for round 9 are $775 million. The awards are a minimum of $10 million to a maximum of $50 million per project, up to $35 million for housing and $15 million for transit and program costs. For tribal projects, the minimum award amount has been lowered to $1 million to encourage more tribal entities to apply for the funding. Now, a single developer cannot receive more than $100 million in AHD and HRI housing costs per an AHSC funding cycle. The base loan amount is $250,000 per assisted unit, and this includes all requested rental AHD and all department loan and grant awards made prior to the application close date. Now, to determine the maximum homeownership AHD grant amount calculation, refer to our NOFA and section 107 of the program guidelines. AHSC funds are split into three project area types: transit-oriented development, or TOD, integrated connectivity projects, ICP, and rural innovative project areas, RIPA, with the remaining 20% awarded to projects to meet statutory requirements and council target goals. Those goals include at least 50% of the project's funds going towards disadvantaged communities, with 50% of the funds to be awarded to the development of affordable housing. There is a target to fund at least one tribal project, but with the lowering of the minimum award to tribal projects to $1 million, with up to a $50 million investment, the AHSC program is looking at ways to award more tribal projects and to fund at least one project from 8 different geographical areas within California. As I just mentioned, the target is to fund at least one project from each of the 8 geographic regions in California. Now, that's to the extent eligible applications are received. Here are those regions. We have the Central Coast, Coastal SoCal, Inland SoCal, the North State Sierras, Sacramento, San Diego, Bay Area, and the San Joaquin Valley. Now, I'm going to take a moment here to pause so you can locate the region that your proposed project is in. All right. An AHSC application must go through a competitive review process, which includes threshold review and scoring. Now, last round, AHSC had one combined letter for threshold and scoring. This round, there will be separate letters, allowing for better communication for each phase of review. Now, applicants will have the opportunity to appeal the threshold findings, and all appeals must be received by the department within 5 business days. Any applicant who submits an appeal will receive a final determination letter. The initial score letter will include the verified quantitative policy scores, or QPS, and metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent scores. Applicants will have the opportunity to appeal scores they do not agree with. All appeals will need to be submitted to the department for review within 5 business days of receipt. All applicants who choose to appeal their initial score will receive a final determination letter. The total GHG outcomes and bin scores will not be calculated until after the appeals are complete. Any assessment of negative points by the department will be included in the initial and final score letters. Projects will not be partially funded. Now, at this time, I'd like to welcome Lena Howell to present an AHSC Round 9 guideline updates.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Lena Howell, and I'm an AHSC representative with Climate Investments Branch. The AHSC program has introduced several key changes in its Round 9 guidelines to enhance clarity, streamline processes, and improve alignment with other HCD programs. These updates include significant renumbering of sections, streamlined language to reduce repetition, and more consistent terminology throughout the document. Formatting adjustments have been made to improve legibility and better align with the multifamily housing program guidelines. Additionally, new language has been added to explain AHSC's affiliation with the California Climate Investments, or CCI, initiative. These revisions aim to make the guidelines more user-friendly and reflective of current program priorities. You will find expectations for transportation improvements located in Section 102C3. One significant change to mention is that on-demand transit must include a pickup location within the project area, and any car share or carpool features must be located at the AHD to ensure direct benefits. For rental projects, the eligible applicant is a sponsor, a legal entity with site control, experience, and capacity. Sponsors can be for-profit, limited profit, or nonprofit. For home ownership projects, the applicant is the developer, also a qualified legal entity with site control experience and capacity. If the developer is a nonprofit corporation, it must be a corporation whose exempt purposes for the 2 years prior to the date of applications have included the activity for which it is applying. The term payee was added to Appendix A definitions to match MHP terminology and clarify that it means the entity receiving AHSC program funds per UMR Section 8313.2. We've broadened the definitions of experience and requirements, and we'll take a closer look at the details during the threshold section of the presentation. AB 2553 updated the definition of major transit stop by changing the required frequency for high quality transit from every 15 minutes to every 20 minutes during peak hours. Urban greening and adequate lighting are no longer threshold requirements. Instead, applicants are instructed to address greening in their narrative response. More information on this and more can be found in section 111. Eligible costs for AHD capital projects depend on the type of development. Rental AHDs may receive loans with allowable costs defined in section 7304 of the MHP guidelines. Homeownership AHD may receive grants based on eligible costs listed in section 400.2 of the Cal Home Guidelines dated December 30th of 2022. The Round 9 AHSC guidelines merges STI and TRA costs into one category to simplify cost tracking and application process. Examples and further clarification can be found in section 104, eligible use of funds. The minimum requested amount for tribal applicants has been lowered to $1 million to expand access, with overall funding goal of $15 million. Now let's talk about changes to the scoring criteria, which reflects stakeholder feedback and alignment goals. Section 111 updates how projects can earn points under QPS. Projects can receive full points for bus strategies that exceed the minimum requirements, rewarding those making major transit improvements to boost access and service. Additionally, level floor boarding, formerly called at-grade boarding, has been brought back as an eligible improvement, which is great news for improving access, especially for riders with mobility challenges. There are also updates to how investments in STI are scored, with new points thresholds based on the amount of percentage of allocated funding. To better align with equity goals, new points are available for projects located in priority populations identified through the updated 2024 CCI mapping tool. Additionally, anti-displacement activities are getting more recognition. Projects that offer mortgage assistance loans to first-time home buyers can earn points. And all anti-displacement efforts must be implemented by the designated entity with a minimum of $150,000 committed per activity. Overall, Section 111 reflects a stronger emphasis on equity, accessibility, and meaningful investment in community-serving infrastructure. Lastly, there is a few important updates around the application process, compliance, and reporting to keep in mind. The guidelines now highlight the availability of state-sponsored technical assistance, especially helpful for applicants who could use a bit more support. There is also a reminder that the department's negative points policy doesn't just apply to the applicant. The policy extends to all responsible parties like developers, sponsors, and recipients. Clearing things up regarding compliance, all legal and regulatory requirements, both state and federal, have been relocated into one section. And don't forget about the AB 640 workforce standards. There are exemptions that apply. One of the exemptions is that requirement is to be 100% affordable. To meet the 100% affordability exemption, all units, except manager's unit, must be at or below 120% AMI and have a 55-year covenant. Be sure to check section 115B for full details on exemptions and standards. Finally, the application now includes a new section dedicated to the environmental assessment. Applicants will need to complete this portion and generate a separate printed document. We'll go over the details during the application overview section of the application. And now I'll hand this over to Flavio for threshold portion of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. Hello, everyone. My name is Flavio Cordero. I am a program representative with the Climate Investment Branch. I'll be going over the first of the three phases of the application review, which is threshold. Phase 1, pass or fail stage. Applications will be evaluated based solely on the materials contained within the submitted application as of the deadline to determine completeness and satisfaction of threshold criteria. There's an extensive list of items that must be met in order for the application to move to the scoring phase. This will be a high-level overview of the threshold requirements. Then I will highlight a few specifically. Please refer to Round 9 AHSC Guidelines, Section 103.1 for complete details. Here's an outline of the main 5 components of threshold review. The first 3 components, the project, the applicant, and the request for program funding, must meet all eligibility requirements. As the 4th component, the project must demonstrate that the development will achieve a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And lastly, the 5th component, the application, must be sufficiently complete to adequately assess project eligibility based on state requirements, underwriting standards, and the AHSC guidelines. Also, as a reminder, if you are applying for other HCD programs, such as NOFA, for additional funding on the same project, please make sure that the applications are aligned to meet program requirements and guidelines. We will be checking in with our partners to ensure application information is consistent. The AHSC program has 3 projects area type that Michael had mentioned in the overview section. Each project, also mentioned, must include at least 1 STI component and 1 HD and/or HRI capital project. All project funding must include transportation components that are primarily utilized in the project area. Please refer to Section 102C for more detailed information. To be an eligible affordable housing development, all projects must comply with Section 102D, which covers the minimum number of housing units and the types of construction. All project area types must be served by a transit stop or station within a half mile of the affordable housing development. Our projects must meet the definition of high quality transit, whereas an ICP project is defined by qualifying transit. As mentioned in key changes, high quality transit is now determined by meeting 20 minutes or less headways during peak operating hours. High quality transit should still meet the permanent infrastructure requirements. Both TOT and ICP transit components must be in operations at the time of application. RIPER project must commit to build at quality transit or high quality transit by certification of occupancy of the AHD. For our program, the development type must either be new construction, an acquisition rehab, which includes preservation of affordable housing that is at risk of conversion to market rate housing, or adaptive reuse of non-residential structures to residential units. The sponsor or developer shall ensure construction or rehabilitation has not commenced at the time of application, including demolition. The commence of construction or rehabilitation work means the first land disturbing activity associated with the project, including land preparation such as clearing, grading, and filling, or the first alteration of any wall, ceiling, floor, or other structural part of the building, whether or not the alteration affects the external dimensions of the building. This further explanation is located in our NOFA Round 9 under Threshold Requirements, Section E. An exception will be in case of an emergency repairs for public safety. The location should meet the needs of tenants and provide easy access to transit options and nearby amenities. Let's talk about net density. Net density is the total number of dwelling units per acre land to be developed for residential or mixed use, excluding allowed deductible areas. Net density for TOD development is 30 units per acre, ICP 20 units per acre, and RIPA 15 units per acre. Applicants can calculate net density by using either a unit count or bedroom count, as shown on the slide. Please note, applicant must still use unit counts for quantification of their project GHG score. I'm going to pause for a moment so you can see both calculations. Okay. A development must also be an all-electric design with no connections to natural gas infrastructure. Also, zero emissions generators, battery arrays, and microgrids are ineligible program costs. Secondly, each assisted unit must be provided by high-speed internet for at least 3 years. Applicants may use program funds from the AHSC program grant to cover this cost. Let's talk about affordability. Rental and homeownership projects must include at least 20% of the total residential units as affordable units. Rental projects must have an overall average affordability of all restricted units and not greater than 50% of AMI. For homeownership, there is no requirements regarding overall project average affordability of the restricted units. Now, let's look at the project area. It must be a contiguous circular area with no greater than 1 mile radius from any single point inside the parcel for TOD and ICP. For RIPA, this radius may extend to 2 miles. For scatter sites, applicants must choose one point in one of the parcels of the applicant's choice. Each project area must include at least one transit station or stop. Lastly, the SDA component may extend beyond the boundaries of the project area, but a pedestrian entrance on transit station or stop must be located inside the project area. An eligible applicant can be on any of the following: a locality, such as Public Housing Authority Redeveloped Agency, or a transit agency. See Section 103 for a full list of applicants. A program operator, this will apply for PGM components only. Applicant developer for homeownership projects, applicant sponsors for rental projects, or tribal entities. All tribal projects must meet the requirements in Appendix B located in the AHSC program guidelines. AHSC is a complex program as there could be multiple applicants to include city, a county, or a transit agency that could be responsible for the grant component. For applicant experience, Unlike other HCD programs, AHSC attributes experience to an entity and not an individual or principal. The sponsor developer of the project must demonstrate their ability to successfully complete the project by providing 2 previously built affordable housing projects that are similar to each proposed AHSC capital project and were completed by the applicant during the 10-year preceding of the application due date. The completed projects submitted by applicants to meet the experience requirements must be similar in construction type, project size, scope, and unit count. Meaning, same unit type, including affordability, tenure, target population, bedroom count, and other key features. For project size, the proposed project cannot be more than 200% larger of the largest completed AHD. Same for scope with similar services or amenities offered. Most importantly, you cannot combine unit counts from multiple projects or phases to meet the experience requirements. Applicant capacity is reviewed for adequate staff, capital assets, and other resources to meet the development and operational needs of the affordable housing project and to maintain the development fiscal integrity, along with applicants' past experience in developing similar projects. And all applicants are required to provide their organizational documents. HCD will verify that each applicant is in good standing within the last 12 months throughout the Secretary of the State office. Regarding site control, at the time of application, a sponsor, developer, or entity that is controlled by the sponsor or developer must demonstrate site control through the date of award. The organizational documents submitted with the application must clearly demonstrate sponsor developer control. For projects developed in Indian country, where site control is a ground lease, the lease agreement shall last for no less than 50 years. For trust or restricted land, a current title status report issued by the Bureau of Indian Affairs is acceptable in lieu of the title report. An affordable housing development can be rental or homeownership, but not a combination of both. And the AHD can be mixed income or mixed use. Program funds apply only to income restricted units, and a minimum of 20% of the total units must be income restricted. However, our most successful applicants have 100% affordable projects. Housing-related infrastructure means capital infrastructure improvement that is necessary to facilitate the AHD project or require as a condition of approval for the housing, such as sewer, water, or utility upgrades. HRI costs can also include factory-built house components utilized in the construction of the AHD, including a deposit required to initiate construction. For all costs, including HRI, the department will review this cost to ensure the project is not receiving other departments' infrastructure program funding for the same component, such as IIG, MFSN, etc. AHSC funding of SDI capital project result in the improvement or adding of infrastructure that encourage mode shift from single occupancy vehicles by enhancing public transit services, pedestrian network, or bicycle networks, including public bike share programs, as well as transit operation expenditures that support transit expansions with the project area. Residential programs are services that improve the life of the community within the project area. This includes workforce development, tenant education, transit passes, and air pollution reduction programs. Programs can either serve the residents of the AHD or be made available to the wider community with the project area. Emission reductions are a key requirement for our program and our review for both a minimum threshold as well for points during scoring. This measure in terms of reduced VMT and is calculated using CARM's GHG benefit calculator tool, which is linked to the application or can be located at CARB's website. All proposed affordable housing development that include a jurisdiction that has fare-based transit will have to provide at least one transit pass to each assisted unit for a minimum of 3 years. And finally, the application must be sufficiently complete to assess the feasibility of the proposed project and its compliance with AHSC program and application requirements. While this slide does not list all of the documents that must be provided by the applicant to determine project and applicant eligibility, it does highlight some of the documents, if not included with the application submission, that could result in an ineligible project. Be sure to review section 103.1 of the AHSC guidelines for complete details. Thank you, everyone. Now we'll pass it along to Brianne with our SCG to go over scoring.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Flavio, and good morning. My name is Brianne Logasa. I'm an associate planner at the California Strategic Growth Council. I'll be going over the AHSC scoring criteria, which after threshold is the second phase of the application review process. These scoring criteria can be found in section 111 of the guidelines. These criteria incentivize applicants to build projects that align with program goals and ensure that funds are allocated to projects that meet program objectives. With that, let's get into it. Now, as you may have gathered, AHSC is a competitive funding program, and we score all projects as such. To be considered for scoring, though, a project must satisfy all threshold requirements specified in section 103.1 of the guidelines that were just shared by Flavio. There are 3 main scoring categories: GHG reductions, quantitative policy scoring, or QPS, and narrative-based policy scoring. These categories total 100 points, but we do not expect that any project achieve a full 100 points in order to be awarded. In fact, I don't think we've ever had a project score a perfect 100 before. For all scoring categories, it is the responsibility of the applicant to provide accurate, complete, and clear descriptions of their proposed project. All right, jumping right into the first one, which is GHG reduction scoring. Now those are 30 of the 100 points are dedicated to this category. This is further broken down with 5 points going to emissions reductions associated with transit and shared mobility emissions reductions, 10 points to emissions reductions associated with project area, including the affordable housing, active transportation, and/or solar project components, and then another 15 for GHG efficiency outcomes. The basis of these GHG reduction scores comes from the quantification methodology, which we use to estimate and communicate the climate benefits and co-benefits of individual projects and estimate reductions in vehicle miles traveled, jobs generated, and also to evaluate program performance to ensure policy goals are being met. Now, in scoring for this category, the GHG emissions reductions for each application will be ranked from highest to lowest. Each application will then be assigned to one of 5 bins in that ranked order. Each bin will receive an assigned point score. So if you are at the highest ranked and you get put into bin 1, you will have the highest score, and it goes down on a sliding scale. The score for each GHG category will be combined to determine the project's total GHG score. I do want to note here that projects that do not include any transit component or if they include transit components that result in a net increase in emissions, they'll be placed in bin 5, but receive 0 points towards the transit and shared mobility GHG category. All right, and then also we have all the required documents for GHG scoring, which are the transit inputs, solar PV inputs, affordable housing inputs, and shared mobility inputs. You will only need to complete the documents relevant to your project, and you can find all these documents on the SGC AHSC guidelines webpage. All right, so that was it for GHG, and now we move on to quantitative policy scoring, which is the biggest slice of the scoring pie at 50 points. This is broken down into 5 subcategories: sustainable transportation infrastructure, or STI, location efficiency and local context, housing affordability and funds committed, anti-displacement activities, and local workforce development and hiring practices. Based on these subcategories, projects can get points for a myriad components, including creating context-sensitive bikeways, creating safe and accessible walkways, improving local bus routes, having proximity to key destinations, having committed funding for all permanent financing, and developing anti-displacement and local workforce measures. And we'll go into the details of some of those now. All right, starting with STI, or sustainable transportation infrastructure, applicants can get 4 points for creating 2 lane miles of context-sensitive bikeway, and 1 point for creating 1 lane mile of context-sensitive bikeway. Projects can also get 2 points if they are expanding an existing bicycle network, as long as the expanded network has an entry point within the project area. Additionally, there are 3 points available for projects that create more than 2,000 continuous feet of safe and accessible walkway, and then 1 point for creating more than 1,000 feet of safe and accessible walkway, but less than 2,000. All right, so for finishing up the STI point section, projects are eligible for 2 points for creating at least 1,000 continuous linear feet of new pedestrian facilities, and 1 point for creating at least 500 feet. Projects can also get up to 4 points for making improvements to a local bus route. And if the project's total STI funding request is at least $9 million or 30%, whichever is lower, of the total funding request, the project can get 5 points. And if the project's STI funding request is $6 million or 15% of the total funding request, again, whichever is lower, the project can get 2 points. Okay, moving on to local efficiency and local context, or sorry, location efficiency and local context. A project can receive up to 3 points for key destinations that are located within a half mile of the affordable housing development. Each key destination is a percentage of a point based on that project area type. Projects are also eligible for 3 points if they are located near an environmentally cleared high-speed rail station, are funding the construction of a community identified component from another SGC program, or are building the AHD or affordable housing development using excess sites land, surplus land, or exempt surplus land. Other ways to get points for location efficiency in local context is you'll get 1 point for being located within a jurisdiction with a housing element in substantial compliance, and 2 points for having a pro-housing designation. Projects can also get points if a tribal entity is the developer or STI partner, and if the AHD is located in a disadvantaged community and or low-income community. Those are not mutually exclusive there. Okay, now on to housing affordability and funds committed. So we have 4 points that are available for projects that demonstrate committed funding. So for rental AHD projects, they can get up to 3 points by dedicating a certain percentage of housing units to 30% AMI or area median income. The points for this are on a sliding scale. So to get the full 3 points, 25% of units must be dedicated to extremely low income. Fewer units dedicated to extremely low income will thus receive fewer points. Rental projects with 3 bedrooms or larger units will have that also have 20% or more of the units at 30% AMI will receive 2 points, and that's also on a sliding scale. The fewer units you have at 3+ bedrooms, the fewer points you get. And for home ownership projects, up to 5 points are available for restricting units to 30% AMI, again on a similar sliding scale. To see details on all the points in this category and to see what that sliding scale looks like, I recommend you review section 111 of the guidelines. All right, so projects can also receive up to 4 points for committing to at least one eligible anti-displacement strategy listed in the guidelines. Projects can also get up to 3 points for implementing eligible workforce development strategies with priority populations. And that was it for quantitative policy scoring. Now we'll move on to narrative-based policy scoring. Applicants here will provide responses to the questions and prompts outlined in the narrative prompts document that's located on the SGC AHSC program webpage. Always a mouthful. There are up to 20 points available for this category, and thus we have 4 subcategories. So the first is climate adaptation and community resiliency, which asks the applicant to outline potential risks posed from climate change and other environmental exposures to the project and address how the risks will be reduced. We also have community benefit and engagement, which is based on residents, developers, stakeholders, government and/or community-based organizers that were engaged in helping shape the project. There's also collaboration and planning, which outlines how the proposed project aligns with previous planning efforts of local government, housing and transportation agencies, and addresses community needs relating to climate, health, housing, mobility, access, and safety. And lastly, there's equity and transformation, which asks the applicant how the project will advance equity or shape future projects in the nearby community. Now, we did make some updates to narrative-based policy this round. We streamlined all the narrative prompts and reduced repetitive information requests. We also request additional information this round regarding how the project supports the regional vision for planning. And with that, I will be passing it back over to HCD to discuss project feasibility.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Jeff Ford, and I'm a representative with the Climate Investment Branch, and I will be guiding you through the feasibility review process today. Feasibility, also known as underwriting. This is the 3rd phase of our internal review process. This review occurs after a project has passed threshold, or phase 1, and scoring phase 2. Now, phase 3 consists of an interagency team review of the narrative-based policy scoring sections for applicants that satisfy both phase 1 and 2. Applications will also be reviewed for financial feasibility during this time, and additional documentation may be requested. Applications determined to be infeasible will not be recommended for award. Here, the department will take a deeper dive into the project's financing, sources and uses, site location, and market conditions. For this review, the department relies on Section 8310 of the Uniform Multifamily Regulations, or UMRs. This gives us a framework for evaluating the project's feasibility. For more insight into the requirements for feasibility, please review Section 103.1G 3 through 5 of the Round 9 AHSC guidelines. All right, here are some key items that are reviewed during feasibility. The market study. This gives us a snapshot of the local economy, demographics, and housing landscape. This must be conducted by a third party and dated within a year of the application deadline. Now, next we look at the project's capital stack. Since HCD often fills the gap in project funding, we need to see verification of all committed funds before moving forward with feasibility. The department uses the sections of the application workbook as a guide for conducting our review, including the unit mix, sources and uses, AHD and HRI, operating budget, supportive services cost, and cash flow. These pieces help us understand what amount of loan and grant funding is needed to develop the project and how the funds will be used. Lastly, we take a look at the total development cost and projected cash flow to make sure the numbers are in compliance with AHSC program guidelines and the UMRs. All right, now, many of you have probably worked with ACD's application workbook. It has evolved over the years, but the fundamentals are still the same. So we'll take a moment to highlight the most important fields you'll need to complete in order to support the project's request for funds. So over the next few slides, I'll walk you through visual examples of critical workbook areas that directly relate to feasibility. We'll start with the Development Sources tab. It's important that your funding commitment letters match the terms you've entered in this section, especially for permanent funding sources. A couple of things to keep in mind. No balloon payments are allowed on senior debt unless HCD's affordability covenant is recorded in a senior position to that debt. Construction sources must equal permanent sources. If they don't match, a detailed explanation is required. Right now, let's talk about aligning cost. It's critical that the total development cost listed in your budget match the total amount of permanent funding sources. They need to be equal. Similarly, your construction sources should match your permanent sources. If they're not equal, just raise a red flag during feasibility review. The high cost verification calculator in the application helps flag excessive cost. It compares your project costs to a baseline. So if your development costs are above 160% of the standard, that's considered unreasonable unless you can fully justify the overage. All right, now, when reviewing the development budget, there are technical details that need to be accurate and clearly documented. First, contractor overhead and profit is capped at 14% of site work and structures. This does not include builders' general liability insurance. For hard cost contingencies, new construction must be at least 5%. Acquisition, rehab, or adaptive reuse projects require at least 10%. If your project shows anything outside those thresholds, we'll need an explanation or a note in the comment section of the application. If you're grouping multiple costs into a single line item, we ask that you separate them out wherever possible for clarity. If separating them isn't possible, please include an explanation in the comments field. Here are a few examples of costs that should be listed individually in the budget. Prevailing wages, structures, accounting, demolition, relocation, and remediation. A quick note, prevailing wages are not the same as prevailing wage monitoring, so please list them accordingly. All right, when filling out the AHD HRI Sources and Uses Budget tab, pay close attention to any line marked as Other. If you're adding an other cost, make sure to remove the default text Specify and clearly identify the cost. If that field isn't updated, the cell will highlight in red, which signals something is missing and delays the review process. Being specific here helps us quickly understand the cost components and reduces the back and forth during feasibility review and project report development. Very key there. We've got a lot of back and forth. But let's talk briefly about operating reserves. These reserves are to cover operating shortfalls that may occur after rent up. This can occur when operating expenses exceed the operating income. You'll find the guidance for this section in 8308 of UMRs. The calculation is based on replacement reserves, non-contingent debt service, projected operating expenses. This includes on-site support service coordination costs. I'm sorry, let me repeat that. This excludes on-site supportive services coordination costs. The reserves requirements differ for tax credit and non-tax credit project. So 3-month reserves for tax credit projects and 4-month reserves for non-tax credit projects. Projects that include subsidies shall follow HCD's pooled transition reserve policy. A transition reserve fee equal to 15% of the annual rental assistance amount shall be due at permanent loan closing. The application includes a transition reserve calculator, so applicants can calculate this fee in advance. Now, when filling out the operating budget, make sure you include the number of employees and the full-time equivalent or FTE count. You need both, not just one or the other. Double check that the annual wage totals make sense based on your FTE count and state minimum wage. For the payroll section, break out payroll taxes, workers' comp, and employee benefits into separate line items. These items are often grouped together, but they need to be listed individually. In the employee unit section, list the job title, the type of unit, and the square footage of each on-site manager. Red cells will indicate when the information is incomplete. Okay. Under finance expenses, make sure to include all mandatory debts. This means amortized loans, the 0.42% annual HCD loan payment, bond issuer fees, and city or county monitoring fees. If your project includes another HCD loan, the annual debt service for that loan must be listed separately in the budget. For asset and partnership management fees, refer to UMR 8314. The limit is $40,887. That's for 2025, with an annual increase of 3.5% thereafter. It's important to make sure this section is accurate and complete. Missing or incorrect entries can negatively impact the cash flow analysis, including your debt service coverage ratio. Now, we have added a supportive services cost tab to the application for this round to make it easier to determine if the costs included in the operating budget do not exceed the allowable supportive service cost. HCD released administrative notice number 24-05, increasing supportive service cost limits, which applies to all state multifamily rental finance programs. These increased amounts are not allowed if you have HCD home ARP, or NHTF funding. Projects with these funds will need to use the UMR limits and should answer yes to the first question in the tab. As you enter the number of units, the calculator will automatically show you the maximum allowable amount for those costs based on current limits. Now, if you answer no to the first question, then you must also answer whether the project has HCD, Veterans Housing and Homelessness Prevention Program, also known as VIP, funding. The amounts for category 3 are slightly higher if you do have VIP funding. The amount of total supportive service cost in the operating budget cell E111 cannot exceed the maximum supportive service cost from the calculator. All right, now the operating budget has a max allowed table to the right of the supportive service line items that have limits: staff, supervisor salaries, and administrative overhead. If you answer yes to the first question in the supportive service cost tab, the table in the operating budget will show the UMR limits. If you answer no, then the table in the operating budget shows the administrative memo limits. All right, now, before you submit your application, please double check your project's debt service coverage ratio, or DSCR. This needs to meet our underwriting standards. For the first year, your DSCR should fall between 1.1 and 1.2, and the project must show positive cash flow for 15 years. There are a few exceptions to this under UMR 8310 E2, but in most cases, the 1.1 to 1.2 range is the benchmark. Now, this concludes the feasibility portion of our presentation. We will now take a 10-minute break and come back with a review of the application portion of today's workshop led by May.
All right, welcome back. Hope everyone was able to refresh their coffee, get some water, stretch your legs. We are going to continue with our presentation, but before we do, I just wanted to let you know that we are actively answering questions in the Q&A function within Zoom. We kindly ask that if you would like follow-up afterwards, or if we're unable to get to your question in the Q&A chat function, then if you are listed as an anonymous attendee, we will not have any way of knowing who you are or how to get an answer back out to you. So you are able to adjust your name in using the 3 dots within your image in Zoom, and there is a rename option, and you can put in your first and your last name. We can then use that to match it to your registration, and which also has your email address, so we can follow up with you if necessary. Additional information will come later in this presentation on how to communicate to us and SGC to propose any other questions that you may have, but we will be answering questions in the chat as we go, or sorry, in the Q&A function as we go along, and then we will open it up for a few questions and answers at the end, but that will literally be us answering the questions we were unable to get to in the Q&A function versus us opening up the room and having folks raise their hand and calling upon them. We just don't have the time to do that today. Thank you, and next up is May.
Thank you, Lynn. My name is May Dow. I am a program representative with the Climate Investment Branch. I will be covering the application highlight and some housekeeping items that will help you with application functionality. To access the Round 9 application, you will navigate to the Notice of Funding located on the AHSC website. Once you click on Notice of Funding, the menu will expand and you will see the Round 9 application workbook. Let's briefly go over the housekeeping item before diving into the application changes. The application has an instruction tab that has the information we will go over on the slide, so no need to write them all down. Be sure you enable macro before entering any information into the application. We will review how to do this in more details in the next slide. Partial functionality of the application workbook will be lost when using Apple Mac computers. We highly recommend using PC computers and Microsoft Office 2013 or newer to complete the application. Always work the application from left to right and top to bottom. Complete all yellow cells. Many of the guideline references are included in the application in orange font. We recommend you have your guidelines and NOFA available when answering questions, entering data, or certifying requirements. After downloading the application, open it and click on the Enable Editing button, as shown in the first image here. If, after enabling, you receive a message regarding security risks, like the second image, it means that you will need to unblock your macros. To do so, we will cover these steps in the next slide, but we wanted to let you know these steps are included in the application instruction page with a Word doc link to walk you through unblocking macros in details. These are the steps to unblocking macros. You will have to save and close the application, reopen it, and click on Enable Editing again. If you no longer receive the security risk warning, you can proceed to complete the application. If you still receive the warning, you will need to close the application, right-click the file, and your pop-up window will appear. Select Properties. In the property box at the bottom of the General tab, select the Unblock checkbox, then click Apply, and then click OK. You should now be able to open and enable the application, and the security message should no longer appear. The AHSC application has been significantly updated for Round 9. The goal of this update was to allow the application to flow more naturally through the requirements. The project overview is now just the AHD and HRI component, STI and PGM, and have their own overview tab. There are several new tabs, including Applicants, Supported Service Costs, STI Project Overview, PGM Project Overview, Certification, and Local Environment Verification. There have also been deletions such as the AHD development budget, threshold requirement, and car info. The items in the threshold and AHD development budget tab have been incorporated into the application in other ways. Any threshold requirements are now asked in the area of the application that they apply. The AHD development budget was consolidated into one spreadsheet under AHD HRI Resources and Uses Budget, also known as SNU. This change to the budget aligns with the multifamily Supernova application. We will review the updates in a later slide. The application will highlight cell red or include red font if any information is inaccurate, incomplete, misleading, or has failed to meet the program requirement as shown in the first image here. The box to the right of the screen provides the total development cost and the request for funding for each of the capital project components. This information is pulling from the sources and uses budget from the AHD, HRI, STI, and PGM. If the amount requested exceeds the allowable amount, it will turn red. Any cell with a red triangle in the upper right corner has a note. Hover over the cell to read the notes, which can give hints as to why something is turning red. New to this round 9 application is the applicant tab. Once entering the entity name, additional row will appear for completion. This is one of the area of the application that NA is not required in all yellow cell if the entity does not apply to your project. The owner borrower, managing general partner, and administrative general partner, if applicable, must be provided on this page. The entity entered here will automatically feed over to the contact list tab. Each applicant associated with a project is required to enter the entity name, applicant type, and organization type. Up to 4 applicants are allowed. In the previous application, the sponsor developed experience and capacity was in the threshold requirement tab. For round 9, this has been moved to the applicant tab. Applicant 1 must be the sponsored developer with AHD HRI experience and capacity. The AHD HRI certification, project staffing chart, and requisite experience are now included under applicant 1. New to the application within the application tab are the payee field. Round 9 guidelines have added a definition for payee as mentioned previously by Lena during key changes. This information is important in identifying the entity whom the department disperses AHSC program fund to. After completing the project overview tab, you will need to return to this page and enter the payee for each applicable component. This will help staff during application review. Note, if there are additional HRI, STI, or PGM component, extra lines will populate as shown in the image on this slide. The previous application included 2 separate budgets for AHD HRI, AHD development budget, and AHD HRI SNU budget. For the round 9 application, we have combined the 2 tabs into the AHD HRI SNU budgets. The cell under eligible basis will need to be completed as well as the uses of funds. Uses of funds sources will be highlighted in blue and carry over from the development source tab. If amounts do not match, the cell will change to red. For a project receiving rental subsidy, the subsidy name, contract term will be entered on the project overview tab, then feed over to the subsidy section of the unit mix. For unit receiving rental subsidy, scroll to the right and enter the monthly growth subsidy contract rent amount. Number of the unit with subsidy, bath, square footage, and building type. Note that round 9 application is now asking for the gross subsidy contract rent, not the net. If your project has RAD or other voucher, only disclose the subsidized amount. You will need to add the rent to the subsidized amount and enter that into the application so that the net subsidy rent in column AP through AU of the unit mix show positive subsidy rent. The image on this slide shows the difference in the entries. The first row shows what happens if only the subsidy is entered. You will end up with a negative net subsidy rate. The second row shows with the correct entry. As previously mentioned, the application now includes an overview tab for STI and PGM. On these tabs, applicant will require to complete the proposed STI and PGM project, as well as the experience from previous similar projects. Once each applicable STI or PGM is entered on the Overview tab, they will display on the STI and PGM SNU budget, where you will be required to complete the budget for each component. On the Overview tab, if the budget total do not match the enforceable funding commitment, the cell will change to red. In the feasibility section of the presentation, Jeff went over the new supported service cost tab and how it applies to the operating budget. Another section included on this tab that did not go over is the project population, lead service provider, supported service narrative, and resident service narrative. AHSC does not regulate to these populations, but this information is needed for us to accurately complete the project report. The application includes a new tab for local approval environmental review verification. The field in white will automatically populate from the applicant and the project overview tab. All fields in canary yellow will need to be filled out. As mentioned previously by Lena, staff has difficulty verifying the environmental and local approval information last funding round. So this form was added back into the application. Applicants should print this form, provide to a local approval agency for completion and verification. Once this form is completed and signed, upload as a PDF in the application portal as attachment 026, AHD local approval. Electronic signatures are acceptable. The Upload Checklist tab is a comprehensive list of required documents that may vary by project components. Throughout the application, individual section will auto-populate depending on your responses. If a file description is shaded red, then the threshold item is not met. It is the applicant's sponsor responsibility to double check that all documents are correctly labeled with the assigned file name and number and is uploaded to the portal. It is important during threshold review that all required documentation is provided and includes the correct file name of the documents uploaded to the application. If any error occurred during the application, we have a dedicated team. Our application support unit will assist with any application error or issues. Please make sure to describe the issue or error under Application Support tab for clear understanding. After adding the comment, email the application to ahsc@hcd.ca.gov. In the email subject line, please use app support so the email gets over to the app support team in a timely manner. Thank you for your time. I will pass it over to Patty to cover the application portal.
Hello. Thank you, May. My name is Patty Jones. I'm also a program representative with HCD's Fund Investment Branch, and I will be going over the application portal today. We have set up a portal to receive your application and supporting documents directly to the website. The application portal is not just used by AHSC, it is used by other programs within HCD, so some of the terminology may not match for all programs. For example, AHSC does not use the term co-applicant. They are all considered applicants. This term co-applicant is used in a later slide that I will go over. Applicants can sign up by clicking on the Apply Now icon located on the department's webpage. use the register link in the upper right-hand corner. Here, you will need to fill in all the required fields to sign up and create a username and password and agree to terms and conditions. Once completed, you will receive an email confirmation. Only create one registration for each project. If there are multiple project managers working on the same project, they will need to use the same username and password. On this page, you will choose the AHSC blue hyperlink, which will bring up the new request box. Then click the new request button to start your application. At the top of the first page, you will need to fill in the project area type, project name, and location. All fields that include a red asterisk are required fields. The user will not be able to proceed until all fields are complete. Once completed, the field will turn gray. After filling in general project information, all applicant information must be filled in as well. You have the option to select up to 3 additional applicants under the co-applicant drop-down menu. As stated in the first slide, other HCD programs use the same application portal and refer to additional applicants as co-applicants. For AHSC, they are all applicants. Therefore, please list applicants 2 through 4 in the co-applicant field. At the bottom of the page, before you can save and continue, you will be asked to fill in the requested amount for each funding component. Chances are you won't have these figures at the time of registration. It is okay to allow the fields to remain at the default 0, except for STI. You will have to add an amount to move forward. Before final application submission, you must return to this page and input the requested amounts from the application workbook for accurate reporting. Once you click Save and Continue, the next page is where you can begin uploading the application workbook and all supporting documentation. Here you will see boxes or tiles that will identify the documents that should be loaded for each section. These documents can easily be dragged and dropped or uploaded for submission. Be sure to click the Save button before exiting. If the Submit button is not present, as you can see on the screenshot with the empty red circle, this means all required documents have not been uploaded. Double check all the tiles with red asterisks and of course your application checklist to make sure nothing has been missed and you have the correct number of documents needed per each section, and then the Submit button will appear. Prior to the application deadline and prior to submission of the application, you can return to the portal to upload additional documents. Simply use your user ID and password, click on Requests, then HCD Requests, and select your application number or project name. Very important to note, once the application is submitted, you can no longer go back in and upload any additional documents. Once documents are saved, an application number will be generated with the project name, date uploaded, and name of the contact person saving the application. At the same time, an email will be generated and sent to you confirming your application number and identifying the documents that have been uploaded to the portal. Be careful not to hit the cancel button, as it will cancel your application. You do receive a warning message on the screen before that happens. Here's an image on the bottom of the slide of how the warning message would look. Just click the No button to proceed. Once again, a reminder, once the application is submitted, you can no longer go back and upload additional documents, and there is no option to reopen the application. You will receive a warning message letting you know you are about to submit your application. If you are not ready to submit, click the No button. These are two safety features within the portal to prevent you from accidentally canceling or submitting your application in error. The complete application with supporting documents must be uploaded and submitted by Wednesday, May 28, 2025 by 4 p.m. Prior to that deadline, if you have not submitted your application yet, a reminder email will be sent out. Applying for AHSC funding is a competitive process that has been historically oversubscribed. Your application will be evaluated solely upon the materials contained within your submission. Applications must meet eligibility requirements upon submission, except as noted in the guidelines, be organized properly, be complete and in compliance with program regulations and guidelines. Applications with substantial inconsistencies may result in disqualification. Only submit one application per project. Remember, no late applications will be accepted under any circumstances. And lastly, it is important to note that the information included in your application becomes a public record, which is available for review by the public. By submitting your application, you are waiving any claim of confidentiality. You're also consenting to the disclosure of all materials upon request. Please only provide information specifically requested within the application. Thank you, and now Barbara will present a short video for CARB, then discuss policies, resources, and lead into the Q&A session.
Thank you, Patty. Good morning. My name is Barbara Sargent. I am a program manager under the Climate Investments branch. The video I'm about to present was created by our partners in the California Air Resources Board, also known as CARB. The video will cover updates to the quantification methodology.
I'm Julia Bronco, and I'll present on the AHSC benefits calculator tool and methodology. CARB periodically reviews its benefits calculator tools to evaluate their effectiveness and update methodologies to make them more robust and user-friendly. The draft quantification methodology and calculator tool for round 9 was made available for a 2-week period, public comment period in December 2024. CARB has updated the round 9 AHSC benefits calculator tool from its previous version to enhance usability and clarity. No substantive changes were made to the quantification methodology. The Affordable Housing tab now allows applicants to estimate the benefits of a second building in the same calculator tool. If they are proposing a multi-building project that includes both a building serving seniors and a building serving the general population. The Shared Mobility tab now allows applicants to directly estimate the benefits of shared mobility projects. Before this update, a third tool was required to quantify these project types. Finally, the Active Transportation tab was consolidated into the Shared Mobility tab. So now bike and pedestrian improvements are quantified in the Shared Mobility tab. We also made some changes to the Transit tab. An update to the tab's interface was made to be more user-friendly and to include more capabilities. One added capability is that applicants that are proposing new or expanded service by replacing a vehicle can estimate the emission reductions of fuel conversion if a baseline vehicle is replaced by a zero-emission vehicle. The other is that you can quantify the reductions associated with renewable energy generated to operate a new service vehicle as a result of the proposed project. And finally, fuel type energy economy ratios and electricity factors were updated based on the most recent emission factor database.
Okay, and here's some additional information not covered in the video that I would like to point out. The AHSC quantification methodology, calculator tool, and user guide are available on the California Climate Investments tool page. A calculator tutorial video reviewing changes in detail is available on SGC's guideline page. Questions about the calculator tool can be sent to ggrfprogram@arb.ca.gov. We'll be hosting a final Q&A session on April 29th at 1:30 p.m. I will now go over HCD program policies. The department's disencumbers policy requires all awarded projects to secure their funding sources within 24 months of initial HCD award. In an effort to address the ongoing affordable housing crisis and be responsible stewards of public funding, the department has established a comprehensive policy for determining negative points across the department's various programs. We recommend doing a pre-check with HCDs prior to submitting your application by emailing compliance-verification@hcd.ca.gov. Also, please review the administrative memo 22-01 for more information. The department's stack and repeal makes it possible for a project to have more than one HCD funding source with a limit of no more than 2 loans and 2 grants. This does not include the AHSC transit and program grant funding. There are a couple additional policies you'll want to become familiar with. One of them is the supportive services policy, which is discussed during the feasibility section of our presentation. Another is the developer fee policy memo. This memo provides important updates and clarifications regarding HCD's policies on developer fees and project funding. HCD will not allow an increase in the developer fees for awarded projects or for projects considered for award. Awards to projects that secure additional funding after an HCD award may have the HCD award amount reduced to avoid supplementation of funds. Lastly, HCD is reviewing its uniform multifamily regulations, also known as UMRs, to ensure alignment with the updated developer fee limits set by the Tax Credit Allocation Committee, also known as TCAC, and the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee, also known as CIDLAC. Please review Administrative Notice 24-03 for more information. Now let's move on to resources and tools that may assist you further. To locate supplemental materials, navigate to the guidelines and regulations on the department's webpage and click on the Round 9 guidelines. This will direct you to the Round 9 materials page on SGC's website. From the SGC website, you will find additional reporting materials such as the project area map guidance, the SCS consistency confirmation template, the anti-displacement assessment, the community engagement tracker, and more. To stay up to date with HCD, we encourage you to sign up for email updates on the department's website. You can do this by clicking on the email sign up icon found on the top right bar of HCD's webpage. Enter your contact information and select your options from the email list to receive program updates and alerts. You can also follow us on social media. Provided on this slide are the handles for our social media pages for Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And here are some links to other useful resources. The 2024 TCAC regulations. The most recent change was posted December 11th, 2024. A methodology for determining rural status. This is helpful if you have questions as to whether your project might qualify as a RIPA. TCAC HCD opportunity area maps, and a link to the California legislature where you can research proposed and pass Senate and Assembly state bills. Applicants should submit questions for this round using the Q&A form found on SGC's webpage. Your questions will be answered and the question and answers will be saved to a spreadsheet form that can be viewed by the public. The Q&A form can be filtered by topic. Prior to submitting a question, you may want to view the Q&A form to see if your question has already been answered. Here are the program emails for both HCD and SGC. As mentioned in the previous slide, questions for this round should be submitted using the Q&A form found on SGC's webpage. Once we have concluded all workshops for this round, a copy of this presentation along with a recorded session will be posted to SGC's webpage. On behalf of HCD, SGC, and CARB, we thank you for attending today's workshop. We We will now open it up to question and answer session. Please utilize the Q&A function found in the webinar to ask your questions. If